I just talked about an exchange of text messages that I had with my friend who lives in Wisconsin. I've known him for like 3 years, and we've just kind of vented to each other over the years, and we both had struggles that we talked to each other about. So he texted me a few weeks ago, and we hadn't talked in a while. So he said, "Hi," and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And he said, "I'm all right, you?" And I said, "Just got off of work, but I'm so good. How is life?" And he said, "Why so good?" And I said, "Because God is good. I'm filled with an unexplainable peace about life. All glory to Him." And he said, "I think I need to find God." And at this point, he hadn't really identified with any religion. He was sort of leaning toward Buddhism, but he didn't have any affiliation. So I said, "I have a lot to say. I'll get back to you when I get home." And he said, "Thank you." And I said, "What do you feel has led you to think that you need to find God?" And he said, "Last night mostly." And he said, "I was a complete child yesterday. I got a call from my cousin Liam, and he wanted me to go to this Halloween raid with him and his friend Jack. We all ended up pretty drunk. And I'm more of what you call a sad drinker, so I got all booty and did a lot of Molly and nitrous oxide and weed and all sorts of other stuff. I'm pretty sure I just wanted to give up and end it, so I did a lot. I got back to his house, and my cousin Anna was there, who I hadn't seen in a really long time. She and I are pretty close, and after I got out of treatment, she would always go out of her way to make me feel safe and all that. But when she came to say hello, I was so embarrassed I couldn't even look her in the eyes. I was such an asshole. Anyways, I guess I just feel like I need some guidance, something else to live for, you know. Right now I'm just kind of idling, trying to keep my father happy, but I don't really have any sense of self at this point. I don't even really know what I want. Honestly, I'm just tired of feeling sorry for myself. I'm frustrated." And so this is my reply and testimony to him. "You can rejoice knowing that there is so much hope in that. Listen, I want to share with you my own personal experience with Jesus. He saved me out of a life with no direction, a life full of self-pity, a life full of chasing after the wind, a life full of pride and selfishness. It was, in all honesty, no life at all. You're familiar with my struggles throughout these past years since moving to Florida. I was depressed, felt no true sense of purpose, and had very few relationships with people, and I didn't want that to change. I was stagnant, going nowhere. I went through the motions day by day. I was never willing to step out, only willing and able to sulk in the loneliness and self-pity that I had inflicted upon myself. Something kept me going. Something kept me holding on to hope for a better future. I would later discover that very wonderful and majestic something. I would often ask the God who I wasn't quite sure I believed in, why I was living the life that I was. Why couldn't I just have one person to be close to? Why couldn't I just feel an ounce of purpose? For 3 years I lived the same hopeless, directionless life. For 3 years I sulked. For 3 years I was stagnant and made no personal growth. Now a little over a year ago I met my now good friend Tori through Christina, who was boarding her horse at our property. We became close, and I was glad to just have one friendship with somebody. Over time we started getting into partying and hanging out with wrong people. It started to become a weekly thing, and I soon felt like my week wasn't complete without getting drunk at least once. I was always wondering where the alcohol or weed was at, and that's where all of my desire laid. I wanted to fill an empty void in my life. I wanted to escape the purposelessness I felt for my life. I wanted to escape my fear of the future. I wanted to put all of my worries and anxieties off with alcohol and other worthless comforts. This last July, Tori and I had planned for me to stay over at her dad's house for the first time. I found out that would mean I would be going to church with them. Upon discovering this, I was rather hesitant and rethought the plans. I was no churchgoer, as at that point I had no idea what I had believed. The classes I took my last semester had truly made me question my small belief in God. They made me question everything. Nevertheless, I went to church that night. I can't really begin to explain how friendly and welcoming the people in that church were. I just felt right at home. I was greeted and hugged by so many strangers. I joined in with Tori and the other youth at the youth group, and the message the pastor talked about that night captured my attention. I remember that it was about forgiveness and how it's not impossible to forgive anyone, regardless of the situation. Afterward, I got to talking a little bit with the youth pastor, and he shared with me how his uncle had literally tried to kill him. He had stab wound scars all over his arm. He had forgiven him some years later, and now they go out to eat every time he visits. He told me of the time he was 16 years old and his car got hit by a drunk driver. He was pronounced dead on the scene. He woke up covered in a white sheet on the stretcher, hearing the sobs of his own mother. He and I were both tearing up as he shared some of his testimony with me. When a woman I hadn't known came up to me and told me that she wanted to give me something. She took the pink scarf that she had that had written all over it in gold writing, "I love Jesus," which she had been wearing that night, off from around her neck, and gave it to me. I said, "Are you serious?" And she said, "Absolutely." I was so taken aback by the genuine kindness and love. I was so overwhelmed by that love in that moment, and I just broke down. I don't know what came over me. I just felt so much love and peace, a love I hadn't truly felt. She hugged me for a few moments, and people gathered around to comfort me and say, "It's okay." I couldn't believe it. These were people I'd never met before. I sincerely wondered where all that love had come from. Little did I know that so many people in that church would become like family to me. The small mustard seed of faith had been planted in my soul. Ever since that night, every other weekend I started staying at Tori's dad's house and we would go to church. Now, mind you, I was still living in the same manner. If anything, it had gotten worse over those last months of July and through the middle of August. That last week in August, we had a guest come speak to our youth group. His name was Tony, and I didn't really have any expectations for what he was going to be speaking to us about. My belief in God at that point was weak, but I still had that little bit of faith. I had so many questions yet, and so many doubts. Tony spoke to us about the evidence of Christianity, the Bible, and Jesus through the use of apologetics and philosophy. The message resonated with me so much because at that point I was so fond of philosophy from the classes I had been taking in college. I found what he was saying to be totally credible. He reiterated that it was completely okay to have questions and doubts, because God wants to answer those questions for us, and He will if you honestly seek Him for the answers. God encourages us to question so we can come that much closer to His truth. I paid so much attention to what he spoke that night and had many questions that he answered readily. His answers were irrefutable. His testimony is absolutely unbelievable and powerful. I'd love to get you into contact with him if you'd like, just so you could hear it. He is so full of love. He has no disdain in his heart for any single person. He loves all people. God has used him in my life so much just to teach me about the things of Jesus, love, and righteousness. Going back to Tony speaking that night, I had truly felt like a veil had come off of my eyes, and I was beginning to see the honest truth that there is an all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving God who sent his only Son to die on the cross on behalf of humankind's sin. Now at that point, I hadn't understood the true sacrifice. I hadn't understood that it was the true act of love. Ever since that very night, I decided to give my life to Jesus. That very night, I had it made up in my mind, and I was not going back. Throughout that next week, I spent time learning about Jesus. At the end of that week, I went to Jesus in prayer and asked him to be the Lord of my life, my heart, my mind, and my soul. I confessed that I was a sinner, and the life that I had been living was not in accordance with the will of God. I confessed that Jesus was sent to die on that cross on mine and the rest of humanity's behalf. It was emotional, and it was an honest plea for help and guidance. Since that night, the Holy Spirit has dwelt within me and taught me many things of God in heaven. I have honestly felt his presence, and it is a peace like you cannot imagine. It's a loss of all fear and anxiety. I've had the honor of hearing his voice speak to my heart. He speaks in a way that is so easy to understand, in a way that is so loving. In the third week or so after being saved, I got home from class one night and was so eager to go into the office at my house and learn more about Jesus from my online Bible class. But on my way there, I passed the note cards that had my speech I would be giving that weekend written on them, lying on the kitchen counter. In that moment, I thought to myself, I should really study for my speech, but I really want to go learn more about Jesus. God spoke to me in my thoughts and said, "Don't worry, I've got you covered. What you're doing now is much more important." I was just like, wow, okay, this is awesome. Thanks, God. He just loves and cares for us so much. He convicts me of the wrong things that I do, not in a condemning way, but in such a gentle manner. He knows the life he has in store for us, and he wants to guide us on the right path. We will fall short many times, but his mercy is endless. He is love. He is eternal. He is the same as he's been forever. Ever since being saved, I have not had the desire to drink or partake in any of the meaningless acts that I had previously. When you truly seek his love, righteousness, and goodness, your cup will be filled. What he does is he sanctifies and cleanses your life where need be. When you truly repent and have the utmost willingness to turn away from dead works, he delivers you from that bondage and slavery to sin. Your desires start to become aligned with his desires. Your heart starts to become aligned with his heart. He makes in you a pure heart that hungers and thirsts for righteousness. You begin to read the word of the Bible, and he gives you understanding that surpasses anything else. He gives you a new set of eyes to see the world, to see the truth, and to discern between good and evil. It is such a beautiful journey. I can't put into words the joy I have found. It cannot be taken away by any one person because they did not give it to me. My Father in heaven did. He's given me so many wonderful opportunities and loving people that have entered my life. They all continue to love Christ and to teach me more about him. When you begin to find your identity in Christ, the direction becomes so clear. Your paths become straight, and it's the smoothest ride because God is in the driver's seat. Once a person realizes that God is in complete control and they surrender to that, the worry they once had bombard their life is diminished. All God asks of us is that we give up what we were never created to be and put on the new self, in which you were created for since before the beginning of time. The plan he has for you and I was predestined. Your life is priceless to him, worth dying for even. He seeks the lost, the ones who feel no purpose, who feel broken inside. By his wounds we are healed. There is so much hope. If you feel like you're being drawn by something to seek God, it is the Father himself who is drawing you. It's not a coincidence, as there is no such thing as coincidences. It is up to all of us to make the choice to pursue the calling. Many are called, but few are chosen. It is a narrow path, the walk of Christianity. Once God takes off the veil, all will become clear to you, and you will no longer feel lost, no longer feel hurt or offended by this world, but loved and cared for by our Father in heaven. It's a continual step-by-step process. He will hold you in the palm of his hand and flip your life upside down in the most loving way. He will guide you all of the days of your life. It's a promise not from me, not from anyone else, but God. I hope this helped and wasn't too much. It came from what God laid on my heart and what I truly feel he intended for you to hear. I'm always here for you if you have any questions.
Great job.
Does anyone have any questions? Concerns? Anything?
Was it easy?
What specifically?
When you first started off on your journey as a Christian, like you said, you struggled. Was it easy?
No, it's not easy because when I first started, like, you live your whole life according to yourself and what you want. And when you don't know if there is a God and you make the choice to believe that there is one, you're filled with doubts. Like, when I would try and pray, my mind would be filled with doubts, like, you don't believe in God, why are you doing this? And it would be so frustrating. It would be like a battle in my mind. And I finally just called out to Jesus to ask him to help my unbelief and my doubt. And eventually those doubts weren't there. And I could pray in peace just between my Father and I.
So, Tori posed a question last time. I'll pose it again. How was your high school years?
They were challenging just because I went to 4 different schools throughout my 4 years, and I didn't make an effort to form any relationships with anyone. Because when I moved freshman year, I had all these people that I loved and my good best friends, and when I left, I didn't have any of that. And I moved to a huge school from a small school, so I didn't know anyone, and I would eat lunch in the bathroom stalls or in the art room when the teacher let me, and it was lonely. And I would pray to God when I didn't even know if there was a God, and just ask him why I was in that position. What had I done to deserve to be alone in such a way? So it was challenging, but it helped me.
So, you were praying back then when you didn't really know if there was a God. You had this idea or notion about it in hopes that somebody or something would answer you. You didn't always get the answer, huh? So that made you doubt even more.
Yeah.
Does that still happen with you? You pray for something and you don't get an answer
Yes.
right away?
Yeah.
What do you, now that you understand a little bit more, what do you find that it means when you don't get an answer right away?
I just know to trust in him. He always has an answer. It may not be right away. It could be a yes, a no, or later, or not now. But I always know to trust in him, and that I will get my answer, and I will come to the realization of what that answer is. It may not always be what I want, but I trust that he knows much better than I do.
It's a hard thing to, simple math, ladies and gentlemen. This past July she's talking about. This wasn't a year ago. This past July. She started fully living her life for God middle of August. We're in the beginning of December. It's only been months, not years, months. And in this short time frame that she has found God, her life has changed dramatically. She has not had the desire to pick up a bottle, drink any kind, touch any illicit drugs, stuff like that, that would do her body harm. All because somebody invited her to church. And all it does is take one simple invite to say, hey, you should come to church. You might like it, X, Y, Z, whatever the reason might be.
Tori, was that hard for you to invite her to church?
I mean, yes and no. I guess it kind of depended because, like, on the situation I was in, it was hard for me because in my living situation, I wasn't sure if she'd be able to stay the night. I wasn't sure if it would work. But not only that, at that point, she wasn't in the best of, like, you know, she was doing stuff that wasn't godly. And when I invited her to church, I was worried that she wasn't going to like it, that she wouldn't want to come back to my dad's, that she didn't want to come and see. And like she said, she tried changing plans, and I told her no, to be honest. Like, I kind of was like, no, you're coming over. And, but I mean, yeah, it was kind of difficult.
Were you worried that she would say no?
Yeah.
Were you worried what she would think about you for inviting her to church?
No.
Were
She knew I went to church.
Were you worried that it might affect your relationship with her if you kept pushing the issue?
No, because, well, I mean, for other people that I've done it with, yeah, but she's my best friend, so I know she accepted me as I was, not as someone else. Sometimes it is difficult to invite people to church because you don't know how they'll think of you.
Well, the reason why I found over the years it's difficult for people, not me per se, but for people to invite other people to church, especially when I went to the football games last year and we were promoting fifth quarters, is because they look at church as a place of persecution, that they're going to come here and they're going to be judged and they're going to be scolded and they're going to be, you know, tarred and hot tar and feathered thrown on you because you're not a Christian. You're living a life of sin. Those people call themselves Christians and think they're all holy. You know, they don't know what my life is like. And there are some churches like that. And that can be scary for people because when you talk with friends, I'm sure, they might have told you these horror stories about churches they went to. I don't know. Did anybody ever tell you stuff like that happened when they went to churches? Or maybe they didn't feel welcome?
Just that it's sort of unwelcoming, you know, but it's sad that they base those, you know, few experiences on, you know, just that time, you know, that time they decided to go to a church that might have not been the right church.
I'm pretty sure the first time you came here, you were actually asking me, you told me, we have to go to Walmart, I have to go get new clothes, I have to change, I have to look something else. And I told her, like, no, you don't. They're gonna accept you, they don't judge. And she's like, no, I have to go get something. And I was like, okay. And so we went to Walmart, and she actually got a change of clothes she bought a change of clothes to change into for the first day of church. And, like, yeah, so in a way, yeah, you felt judged. You felt like you were going to be judged. And
Just based on the idea that I had
Church,
previously, not having been to church.
Yeah.
You know, like when you don't go to a church and you don't feel at home in a church, I think there definitely is an idea that people have of what church is and what it's supposed to be. You have to get dressed up. You have to be very proper. You know, it's uncomfortable, but it's just not like that.
I mean, that happened to Keith and I years ago when we first started living in Sarasota. We tried out a church and went there a couple times, and we were like, pastor's got a good message. All right, I want to know a little bit more about the church. So after the service was over, we walked up to the information desk to get some information about the church. And the lady goes, hey, how you doing? How can I help you? I said, we'd like to. And as I was talking, apparently there was somebody behind me that she knew. She totally stopped talking to me and my wife, walked from behind the guest information counter, started talking to them, and blew us off. As soon as that happened, I was like, I'm done with this church. I said, if you're here to give information about this church, you got somebody asking you a question, interact, be with that person, because that might be your one chance to make that impression. That might be your one chance to plant that seed.
That's right.
You blow them off, well, I don't go to that church, obviously. You know, it happens. There are people out there that call themselves Christians that don't play the role. They're
Don't
gonna
live the role. Don't live
Live
the
the role.
lifestyle.
You're gonna encounter them every day, from here to the day you meet your Creator. I'm sure you have seen some already that call themselves Christians but don't really act like a Christian. Fair to say? Is that fair to say? That you might have met some people already that call
Oh,
themselves
yeah.
Christians that don't
For
truly
sure.
live that lifestyle?
For sure.
And-
Go ahead. I'm
Good.
sorry.
And is it hard for you to see that now, knowing what you know?
Yes, because when you know the truth and you've seen it lived out, it's hard to see something that's what someone's calling the truth, but it's not really the truth. And it's hard to see that because you know it's not right. And you want that person to know the real truth, because I think if they did, they wouldn't be living out something that's false, you know?
So have you found peace since finding God?
Absolutely. Just and like the littlest things. Like I used to just get mad over every little thing, like any little thing. I'm just so impatient, and I'm still impatient to some degree. But I've found peace in many things that I once didn't, and I used to resent my parents when they asked me to do anything. But I've had this realization that they raised me. I owe them. I mean, maybe not owe them, but I respect them.
They deserve to be
Yes,
earned.
they deserve. It's what they deserve, and I respect them. And you know, you realize when you help, it's not to benefit. It's not for self gain. It's to love. You know.
One of the 10 Commandments: honor thy mother and father.
Wait, what, number 5?
Honor
It's
thy
the
mother
only
and father.
commandment that has a promise with it too.
Now that's a tough steak to chew. That steak was well done.
Some of you have not the best living situations. We know. We talk with some of you. We see stuff. We hear stuff. We understand that. But we are still commanded to honor thy mother and father. Real simple, guys. Given 10 commandments. Not that hard. You start living a life for God, things open up, don't they? Anything specifically you want to talk about? Might have opened up since you've...
Well, before I had like no real plan. I didn't like. I was going to school, but I didn't know what I was gonna do. I felt like it was for nothing. And when I accepted Christ, it's like he told me to move. Like for 3 years I had done nothing, and he's like, you gotta start moving. Like I got a job, he led me to the right job. I started realizing what I wanted, where I wanted to go with psychology, my degree. And just so many loving people came into my life, like at the snap of a finger, when I had nobody, like no one in my life, just all these loving people came into my life. And just opening up opportunities for like Bible studies and getting involved with my school in that aspect. And it was just like the snap of a finger. It all just came. It was overwhelming and it was amazing. But yeah,
I got 2 questions. What do you want to do now?
I want to go into Christian counseling.
Amazing. A couple months ago, she didn't know what she wanted to do. Found God. God's like, I got a plan for you, now that you're ready to listen. You started off this conversation talking about a text message exchange between you and your friend. Tony's been involved. How's he doing?
Your friend, not Tony.
Yeah, obviously. But
I was so
He's-
confused. I thought it was like,
He said that he's ready to accept Christ into his life. He's ready to live a life for God. And it's a complete turnaround from, the past years when I've tried, when I thought I was somewhat of a Christian. Like I thought I was saved, but I wasn't. And I thought I might believe in God, but I didn't, you know what I mean?
you were a closet Christian.
Yeah. To an extent, I wasn't sure if there was a God or not. Like it was just back and forth, like confusion, just complete confusion. But he didn't want anything to do with it. He just didn't think he just didn't like religion, really. But he started going to church. He found a church in Minneapolis that he goes to now. He got a Bible, and he thinks it's so interesting. He's read like Genesis and
Leviticus?
yes, the second chapter, right?
Exodus.
Exodus, yes. He's read those first 2 chapters, and he thinks it's so interesting, and he just loves it. So it's really awesome.
All from a simple invite to church.
That's really good. I have something for him since he finished Exodus.
It's a good book. But I mean, all from a simple invite.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
it goes further in because I
Do
met
tell.
Christina in 9th grade. Christina and I met each other. First day of school, I actually sat next to her because we have like this class that we had to go to find out our actual schedules. And I met her, and she and I became really close. And I had been working with a horse, and that horse ended up passing away. And within that time frame of that horse passing away, a week later, she had a horse at her barn that I was going to go look at. And that's how I met her. And we didn't really talk for like a few months because I didn't think she liked me, to be honest. Like, that's just how she came off at first.
You thought she was stuck up?
Well, she just seemed really like, yeah, she just shy. And so we didn't talk to her. And then all of a sudden I would go in the house to get water and I'd see her and I'd be like, hey, and like we would start talking. And that's how our friendship started, was because of her and our love for horses. And then we became very close and we started hanging out more, and we all 3 of us always hung out all the time. And I think without the way that God plans our lives, and even though I wasn't as close to him as I was or as I am now, he put her in my life for a reason. He put me in her life, and now Christina's living with me at my mom's house, and it's working out. It's in God. You may not see it now, and you may not see it maybe 5 years from now or anything, but it doesn't take a snap of a finger sometimes. Sometimes it takes years to notice where God's bringing you. You just don't know it. Like, you got to trust in him. You really honestly do.
I said it before, you want to make God laugh? Tell him what you want to do with your life.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him, I want to do this with my life. God's going to be like, that's great. Hang on, because you don't know what I got planned for you. And once that door, that window, whatever it happens to be, opens up for you guys to realize and see what his true plan and destination is for you, it's going to be like, wow, I never realized that was actually going to be in my cards. I didn't know I was going to be dealt that. I struggle with that daily sometimes. Tried out many different things. Went to school, got many certifications, a couple things here and there. The last thing I went to school for was to be a police officer. Graduated police academy. That was over a year ago. I can't get a job. Not that, yeah, I can't get a job as a police officer. But, I wanted that. I wanted to be a police officer. I want to do this. That was my choice. That's may not be in God's cards for me. I'm okay with that. If that's not really what he wants me to be, as hard as a pill that might be to swallow right now, I'm okay with that. Because, like I said, 10 years ago, I never would have thought I'd be sitting here leading a youth group, discipling to you guys and helping you understand how much God truly loves you guys. It's amazing to see how far you've come in the months that I've known you. It's amazing to see, when I see you post things on Facebook, that desire, that passion that you have for God. I'm just excited to see where you're going to go, what you're going to do in life. Just as I am for all of you. But when you see it on fire, and it's just blazing, it's just like, how much hotter can this get? I mean, seriously, it's just going and burning and burning and burning, and soon I'm saying it's gonna be like a volcano exploding. What's up, Tori?
The change, I can honestly say, like, for her was something else. I can say that honestly, because it was like she was so hesitant to go to church, and she was a whole nother person before that one day. Like that one day sparked everything. Like, cause I remember the next, like not even a week later, she bought her own Bible, like a new one, cause she had one that was like the ones they give out in church. But like, she went out and bought one, and was reading and highlighting and writing notes, and was just so on fire for God. And you know, to see that and like to see how so other closet Christians are, and like how, you know, it's noticeable. It's a noticeable change in her that is outgoing and just so everything. Like she would text me randomly like at like 12 o'clock at night. I just read this. You have to read it. Like Tori here, and she sends me links, and I'm just like,
I'm
it's
sleeping.
12 o'clock. I'm trying to sleep. She's like, but God showed me this, and like. I'm like, why are you up? She's like, I don't know.
She's private messaged me on Facebook. Hey, that, and I'm like, already. She's up.
I'll like
yeah.
read things and I get so excited. Like he wants me to share it with
Yeah.
people. I just feel this like desire to share it with everybody.
It's funny because she's like, I feel like I'm so annoying sometimes.
You're
I'm
not,
like, no,
though.
you're not.
Trust me, you're not.
It's like,
It's from the
it's nice to
outside,
see.
it's a beautiful thing to see.
Yes.
And a beautiful thing to witness. It's just like, you know, late at night, all of a sudden, bing, bing. I'm like, holy crap. Like, and she'll send you these links, and you're like, and she's saying it now. I'm like, hang on, I got to read the first one still. And I'm like,
And sends another one.
yeah, like, let me respond on the first one, then I'll read the next two, and I'll get back to you on that. And that's fine. I mean, Nevins has done that too. I mean, Nevins has posed one question
Nevins
after the
has
next.
called
after
me
the
at like
next,
3
after
in
the
the
next.
morning, and we like stayed up and we read our Bibles at like 4 in the freaking morning. And then right when I fall asleep, he calls. He's like, "Bro, this next one's really good." Right when I fall asleep, and then I'll fall asleep again. And I end up just staying awake because I'm so mad at him at that point. And then he'll send me like 102 freaking music videos on
She's
Christian
like, I'm
rap.
trying to sleep. I'm supposed to be asleep right now, and I have to be up tomorrow.
And
You're up for this reason, but it's sleepy mad. Where
everyone's paths and journeys are going to be different. Not everyone's going to have the same explosion, the same
experiences,
hunger.
hunger.
The same hunger. It's going to be different for everybody.
School's up.
But hang on, guys, because when he gives you that seed and he gives you that thirst, that hunger, that desire, don't ignore it. Because you're not promised tomorrow. None of us are. Don't ignore it. Start listening. Start paying attention. Start living for him. Not me, not your friends, not your parents, not anybody else. Start living for him. Because he is giving all for you. And he continues to give all. Because he can easily, like he's done before, wipe out this entire planet. And start fresh. And say, you know what? Forget it, I'm done.